If I asked you what creatine does, you'd probably say it's for your muscles and then go back to scrolling. And you wouldn't be wrong. You'd just be about half right. And creatine has been living a double life this entire time, quietly running one of the most important energy systems in your brain, while the entire fitness industry was busy taking selfies in the mirror. I'm JD, pharmacist, 30 plus years in healthcare, judo black belt, BJJ brown belt, and a guy who's old enough to have personally watched creatine go from weird bodybuilder powder to actually one of the most studied supplements on earth. Today, we're covering both lives. The muscle story you think you know, and the brain story you definitely don't. So stick around, because the ending involves something we've been quietly building. Okay, let's start with the life everybody already knows about, because even that gets oversimplified to creatine makes you hold water and look bigger. Sure, partially, but here's what's actually happening under the hood. Your muscles run on a molecule called ATP. Every contraction, every rep, every escape off the bottom of the mat, every time you pick up a kid or a kettlebell burns through ATP almost instantly. The problem is your muscles only store a few seconds worth at a time. So you need a fast way to regenerate it. And that's where creatine comes in. It gets stored as phosphocreatine. And phosphocreatine acts like a backup battery pack, instantly donating a phosphate group to rebuild spent ATP so you can keep producing force without stalling out. More phosphocreatine on board means more rapid fire ATP regeneration, which means more reps, more power output, faster recovery between sets. And that's mechanism number one. And it's the one that gets all the attention. Here's the part that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. When creatine moves into a muscle cell, water follows it. And that's basic osmotic pressure. The cell swells slightly. And according to research published in Clinical Nutrition ESPN, that swelling isn't just cosmetic puffiness. It acts as its own anabolic signal. And the cell perceives the swelling as a structural challenge and responds by reinforcing itself, which research suggests contributes to muscle protein synthesis over time. And on top of that, a review on creatine's mechanisms in skeletal muscle describes effects on IGF-1 signaling, activation of the mTOR pathway, and activation of satellite cells, the dormant repair cells that get recruited when muscle tissue is stressed and needs to rebuild bigger. So creatine isn't just refilling your gas tank mid-set. It may also be tapping your muscle on the shoulder and saying, build more capacity. We're going to need it. And this matters more after 40 than it did at 25, because you're fighting a slow background loss of muscle mass and strength every single year you don't actively resist it. That's just what sarcopenia does on a calendar, quietly, whether you're paying attention or not. Creatine combined with resistance training is one of the few tools with real research behind it for pushing back on that curve. And a meta-analysis pulling over 60 controlled trials found that creatine supplementation combined with resistance training produced a meaningful increase in fat-free mass compared to training alone, and without a meaningful change in fat mass or body fat percentage. In other words, the extra scale weight people worry about isn't bloat, it's real tissue. And no, before you ask, healthy kidneys handle this fine. And there's no loading phase required to get the benefit. And the hair loss myth traces back to a single 2009 study that measured a hormone precursor, not actual hair loss. And it's never been replicated since. And I'll save the full myth-busting rant for another video. Today, we're staying on mechanism. Okay, muscle story mostly covered. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because your brain runs on the exact same fuel system, and almost nobody put that together until recently. Your brain isn't a muscle, obviously, but it uses that same ATP and phosphocreatine shuttle to keep neurons firing. And your brain is an absolute energy hog, a small percentage of your body weight pulling a wildly disproportionate share of your daily calories, all day, every day, whether you're solving a problem at work or just trying to remember why you walked into the kitchen. Brain imaging research has actually caught this in action. And a study published in Scientific Reports used phosphorus MRS scanning, direct imaging of brain energy compounds, and found that a single dose of creatine helps sustain phosphocreatine and ATP levels in sleep-deprived subjects while also stabilizing brain pH. That's not a theory. That's a camera inside a living brain showing the fuel gauge holding steadier with creatine on board. And on the outcome side, a 2022 meta-analysis in Nutrition Reviews found measurable memory improvements in older adults, with the strongest effects specifically in the 66 to 76 age range, exactly the population that worries most about a slipping memory. So you've got the mechanism, brain energy buffering, and you've got the outcome, better memory performance lining up in the same direction. Plenty of supplements have a plausible sounding mechanism with nothing to show for it. Creatine has both halves. It's also worth knowing your liver and kidneys make some creatine on their own, and you get more of it from eating red meat and fish. So if you're a vegetarian or vegan, or just someone who treats steak as a special occasion, your baseline is already lower than the guy next to you at the gym, which means supplementing closes a bigger gap for you than it does for him. If you train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Judo like I do, you already know this feeling. You drill and escape 400 times on the mats, and then in live rolling at minute 6, when you're tired and your brain is under real load, you need that pattern to fire instantly without hesitation. The brain running low on its energy reserve is a half second slower at exactly the moment you can't afford it. That's not just an age thing. That's biochemistry under stress, and it's fixable. So this is exactly why we didn't want to just sell you a tub of plain creatine and call it a day. We built NuCreatine around both halves of this story, the muscle side and the brain side, instead of picking one. And it starts with 5 grams of creatine monohydrate, the same well-researched dose and form behind everything we just covered. Then we layered in a choline compound your brain uses to build the neurotransmitter behind memory and focus. An amino acid naturally found in tea that's associated with calm, clear-headed alertness. And a small amount of green coffee for a touch of natural caffeine without stacking on a full cup's worth of jitters. Rounded out with a B vitamin complex, vitamin C, chromium, and a few supporting compounds your nervous system and metabolism rely on daily. Sweetened with tagatose instead of the usual junk, so it actually tastes like something you'd want to drink instead of choke down. 1 scoop, muscle mechanism and brain mechanism covered in the same 5 seconds it takes to mix it into water. It's in production right now, and we're finishing it properly instead of rushing it out the door. If you want to be first in line when it's ready, that's NuCreatine.com, which I'll leave down in the description as well. And actually, we've got a short time while supplies last to get a free month supply. Just get on the list, no spam, and to be fully transparent, of course, these statements haven't been evaluated by the good old FDA, but every ingredient in this formula has peer-reviewed research behind it. That's the only standard we work to. So here's where that leaves you. Stop thinking of creatine as a bodybuilder powder you grew out of. It's an energy system upgrade for 2 of the hardest working tissues in your body. The one you can see in the mirror and the one running everything else. 3 to 5 grams every day. No exceptions. No loading phase required. So drop a comment and tell me, were you taking creatine just for the gains, or did you already know about the brain side? I read every single one. And hit subscribe if you want more of this straight talk, no fluff health content. And go ahead and send this video to the person in your life who still thinks creatine is just for 25-year-olds flexing it in the mirror. And this is JD from NuLifeSpan. Same compound, double the reason to take it. And I'll see you in the next one.